to Living Fortified. Today my guest is Dr. Dean Stubbs, and I'm very, very excited to have him on the show because I've known him for a long time.
Now, yeah.
I've learned a lot of things from him. I watched him present about health and well-being, and it has been always very, very educational. And I thought I would invite him along to talk to us about the immune system. So for many of the viewers, the immune system is a bit of a mystery. While we all know what it is, but where it is, how it works, so some of these gaps, I think we could fill in for the viewers. So can you break it down for us, how it works and the key components of it?
So I guess the key components of the immune system, very simply, starts with your white blood cells. And your blood, you have your red blood cells and your white blood cells, and most people have heard of that. So the white blood cells are what make up your immune system from that perspective. And even with your white blood cells, they're broken down into different categories. They have different jobs. Some are just like your general policeman walking the streets that will looking out for any kind of trouble. And some are more specific, like detectives that will go for specific bacteria or viruses, and they're very targeted. Some related to allergy and things. So there's different parts of the different types of white blood cells play different roles within that, and they're roaming around in your blood, so they're constantly going around the body in your blood, looking for trouble. Hopefully they don't find it, but if they do, it's there. And I guess the other part that most people know is your antibodies. So antibodies are basically proteins. They're just protein structures that are made by your white blood cells, or certain white blood cells make these antibodies. And most of them are specific. So if you have a particular virus, the seasonal flu virus, it's got like a label on it, and your body will see it. It'll identify that. It'll make the antibodies specific for that virus, and they're very, very specific. So when that virus mutates and changes a little bit, then the antibodies you've made previously won't really identify next season's flu virus coming around, or even 6 months' time if it's changed. So your antibodies are generally quite specific for different viruses and bacteria and things that you get exposed to. I guess the other component of the immune system that most people know are your lymph glands here, but they come all through the body. Your lymph glands are not in your blood. They're obviously in the tissues, and they're kind of constantly monitoring what's going on, particularly at a tissue level. So everything gets drained, all the extra fluid that leaks out of the blood vessels or gets out of the blood vessels for whatever reason, drains back into the system, drains through the lymphatic system. So it's kind of like that drainage system. Comes all back up, and that has the lymph nodes all through it. So it's constantly monitoring what's going on in your body at a tissue level. And obviously when there's an infection there, we all know the lymph glands react, they enlarge, they get painful, and they've identified there's something there and mounting a response to it to help your body get rid of that. So it's basically it. There's few other things, but they're the basic components to it. So your white blood cells, your antibodies, proteins, and the lymph system.
Okay, well, thank you. Often hear the term that your immune system lives in your gut. So why do they say that? How does this work?
Yeah, well, if you count up all your immune cells in your body, they reckon about 70% of them, which is just under 2/3 to 3/4 of all those cells, will be found around the gut, around the bowel.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, whilst the gut is inside our body, it's really an external environment, right? So what's in the middle of our gut is actually outside of the body in itself. So our greatest exposure to external viruses and bacteria and funguses and toxins and things like that is through the gut. So we have probably if you took all the bacteria, the microbiome as it's called, which is made up of that bacteria and viruses and fungus, if you took all those cells and put them all together, they would weigh probably about 1 to 2 kilograms.
Wow.
Which if you think a 1 kg block of cheese,
yeah.
So 1 or 2 of those in weight of bacteria, etc., in our gut, that's basically what's there. So we want most of that to be good guys, so beneficial. We live in harmony with it. It has positive effects on our body, but there's also a great threat with that as well. And so that's why 3/4 of our immune system lives around our gut, because there's a lot of exposure, and they put like little tentacles go out, like little aerials go through the gut wall, and it's constantly analyzing what's inside the gut. It's a constant process.
Right.
Yeah.
So would that be correct to assume that what we eat has something to do with the strength and performance of our immune system?
Yeah. So I've always thought that the greatest way to affect your immune system positively or negatively is through the gut, because 3/4 of it's there. And so if you want to affect it either way, then what's going on in the gut, what environment you create in your gut is going to have the greatest impact. And of course, the biggest way to affect what's going on in your gut is what you're putting in there, so what you're feeding it. The microbiome, the greater part of it, digests our food. It plays a role in digestion, and so it will take whatever food we put in there and it will digest it and break it up, and it will produce its own chemicals. And some of those chemicals are very beneficial to the body, like some of them will help our metabolism. They actually turn on our metabolism, get our bodies creating energy and burning fat, which for a lot of people is very good. So it can have positive effects on a lot of things, effects on our brain. It's a massive effect on our brain and our mind and how that works. So our microbiome will digest the food, produce chemicals that will get up into the brain and will actually help it become sharper, more energetic, work better. Or conversely, if it's other types of foods, it will feed other type of bacteria and fungi, and that'll produce a different type of chemical which has a detrimental effect on our brain, the brain fog, lack of energy, depression, those kind of things. So it can have a very profound effect, because the bacteria, the microbiome, feed off what we feed ourselves, and then they produce chemicals as a result of that. And as I said, beneficial, harmful, that's how it goes. And it's different. So the microbiome is very, very unique, and it's very unique to people's environment. We probably have our microbiome set in place by the time we turn 2. So from when we're inside our mummy's tummy, born, and then those first 2 years of life, it's very, very important in shaping what our microbiome is going to be for the rest of our life. So those first 2 years are so important. And what comes into it is where we grow up. So that has a profound effect on our microbiome. And so they did studies in Africa. They took the Maasai tribe, which is still a nomadic tribe, in Kenya, Tanzania. They feed off what they catch. They eat what's locally, what they can in their wanderings. And they took their microbiome and analysed that and had a look at that. And they took some from Italy, just some average Italian people, and they compared them. Totally different. Totally different. Because what you need to survive on the velds of Africa is totally different to what you need to survive on the streets of Italy. And if they swap them, you'd cause great harm to the other one.
Yes.
So it's unique. And so if we go back to food, what we eat becomes unique as well, in terms of what's beneficial for us and what's harmful for us. And there's that old adage is one man's medicine is another man's poison. I think that's one of the key things to understand, is just because you hear something and everybody's plugging it saying, this is really good, this is really good, you've got to have this, you've got to have this. Maybe it will be. And for maybe a large part of the population, it will be beneficial. But there'll always be a portion of the population where it's not beneficial. And so it's really important to listen to your body, listen to your gut, listen to how you feel, when you're eating something, eating particular food, because if your gut's not happy, and if you're feeling low energy, your energy's dropping, your brain fog's getting worse, then I don't care how many people say that food's beneficial, I'd strongly suggest it's not beneficial for you. And so that then becomes the art, and that's the hard thing, because there's so much conflicting information out there, isn't there? But you've got to take the time to figure out what's beneficial for you, and that just takes time. That takes time.
It was such an eye-opener for me related to this exact thing you just were talking about. I was reading this book. I think his name was Ben Angel. He's an Australian author. He wrote this book called Unstoppable. And he actually traveled a lot to the US and Canada and Europe to present, to give talks on the subject. And it was about microbiome and sleep and exercise, and so how we can become unstoppable. And he ended up being very, very unwell because he would spend 3 months in Europe, 3 months in the US, 3 months in Asia, and he couldn't figure out why he was losing muscle, had no energy. And then he figured it out, came back to Australia, had all sorts of treatments, and figured it out that his microbiome was adjusting to a completely different variety of foods, a different variety of pesticides and chemicals and toxins, inevitably, and that was exactly his problem. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is sometimes we read a book or listen to something, a podcast, or watch a video, and someone is passionately recommending something, and they live in Europe or live in Asia or live in North America, and we try it here, and it doesn't give us the result we were hoping. And so that is the reason, right?
Yeah, hugely so. And I think, so where do you start with all of this? And that's really interesting. It's really interesting. So a lot of it, you go back to ancestry as well, is really important. Now, once you're kind of 2 or 3 generations, so if you come from Hungary, I'd look at, well, what foods are native to Hungary and what do your ancestors eat in Hungary?
Salami
and thrive,
bread.
then those foods are likely going to be beneficial for you, right? But salami and bread for someone else will cause them constipation, tummy aches, and not be helpful for them. So a really good place to start is look at what your ancestry is. But if you've been in a country for 2 or 3 generations, you have to go back to your great-grandparents were from Hungary, but you've been in Australia. Your parents, your grandparents have all lived in Australia and been born and bred in Australia. Then it's going to be a more Australian, healthy Australian diet that's going to be where you're at. So, because I get a lot of people come in and they go, a certain food, and I'll go, well, what's your ancestry? And they'll go, from this part of the world, and they're trying to eat food that is predominantly eaten in a very different part of the world. And I just go, no, stop. Coconut oil is a classic one for that. I go, the Northern European ancestry, and they're having lots of coconut oil because they're told coconut oil is really good for them. And I'm going, well, when did your ancestors ever get exposed to coconuts and therefore coconut oil? So if you're taking it and you're not feeling good, I'd say stop it, because it's not for you. If you come from the tropical regions and your ancestors of absolutely have coconut and coconut oil. And so it's little things like that. And I think that's a really good place to start.
That's brilliant.
Just as a start point.
Because there's a lot of products that get hyped up by social media and internet, and before you know it, every health food store is packed shelves of something, kimchi, sauerkraut. They're all great, like very healthy stuff. But we have to look at this part of it. Is it for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another classic one, is fermented foods. All right. So fermented foods in general are fantastic. They're good. However, one man's medicine is another man's poison. And so it's exactly the same with fermented foods. And when people come and ask me about them, I always say, give it a go, but just be prepared that if you're not feeling good on it, your gut's getting upset, you're getting tummy pains or bloating or anything feels like your energy is dropping, brain fog, then stop. It's not for you.
Yep.
Because our microbiome is balanced. And anything, when you take probiotics, I'm a big fan of probiotics, but got to be cautious and really think about it before I use them. So, you know, it's finely balanced. And if you're already tipping this way, and by putting in fermented foods, it tips it further that way, then you're going to be worse. Right. And you need something that's actually going to bring it back. And, you know, so often it's trial and error.
Yep.
You know, say don't have it. Say, great, go for it. Give it a go. But always be aware if your body's telling you it's not happy, then it's not happy and it's not for you. And so the big thing, listen to your body.
Fantastic advice. Very, very good advice. Now, in your opinion, is there such thing as immune system supporting diet or nutrition?
Yep. So if we come back to the gut again, right, and supporting our immune system in the gut, then what we feed the bacteria, what we feed our gut will determine the bacteria that grow. And the health, we know there's so much evidence from all around the world that shows that our healthy bacteria in our gut that produce a lot of the beneficial metabolites or chemicals for our body feed off fiber. So, and fiber from all different varieties. So, you know, a healthy microbiome is one that contains a great variety of different bacteria and in all good numbers, nice and even. If you've got a lot good guys, but there's only a few of them, then that's not so healthy. If you've got a lot of harmful ones, then that's also not good. But you know, broad spectrum. The way to get broad spectrum or a lot of variety is to eat a variety of foods, is what we're getting to. So a variety of different fibers. So, you know, we know vegetables, but don't eat the same vegetables. Eat all different types of vegetables. And
maybe colors, look at colors, many colors.
Getting that one, yeah. So seasonal and local, right? A food that's grown in my local environment, as hopefully as
close to home
chemical free as possible, as close to home as possible, then that food has learned how to thrive and survive in that environment. And it will produce the chemicals it needs to thrive and survive in that environment. So if you eat that food, then what's it going to trigger in your cells, in your DNA? It will activate all the genes that will help you to thrive and survive in this environment. So eating local, eating seasonal is really, really important, and as big a variety as you can. You know, the nuts, the seeds, the fruit, the legumes, beans, they're all high in fiber, but again, find the ones you're eating one that's not working for you, stop it. And the rainbow diet. So all the different colors, natural colors, of course. So all the different colors, a wide variety of colors would all be good. So that's a real simple way. And I think that one of the other things too is, you know, we eat so many processed carbohydrates. The three big food groups are proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. There are fats that our body can't produce, that we have to and can only get from our food source. There are proteins that our body can't make, that we can only get from our food source. But there's not a single carbohydrate that our body can't make.
We can make them in many different ways.
We can make them in many different ways. So carbohydrates are not essential for providing those basic building blocks for our body, and let alone a lot of the processed carbohydrates and sugars. So really reducing the amount of food that you eat out of a packet. If you have to open a packet to eat it, not necessarily bad, but limit that and eat the food that comes off the trees and out of the ground and is grown, and that's a really simple way of helping and supporting your immune system. You mentioned a couple of things earlier that are not diet related, and it was sleep and stress. Massive. So getting, you know, a good 7-8 hours sleep for the majority of people is really good. Getting those hours in before midnight for the majority of people is good. Now, again, we're all different. Some people will thrive off going to bed at 9, 10 o'clock and wake up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and that works for their system and they thrive with that. Other people do better going to bed at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they'll sleep through till 7 o'clock in the morning, maybe 8 o'clock, and they'll thrive off that. So again, it's just find your own natural body rhythms with sleep. Same with exercise. Some people get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, don't they? Bang, they hit it hard and they just exercise, ready to go. Other people, it's 7, 8 o'clock, and they like what I call the freight trains. They just start slow, but by the time the afternoon comes around, they've really hit their straps, and and they're going for it. They achieve huge amounts in the afternoon and the evening, where the early morning people then are puttering out of steam by that stage and stuff. So it's really just find your own natural rhythm with that. But the sleep, so that's with the sleep. Sleep's really important, and if you're not getting enough sleep and you're getting very disrupted sleep, then that'll have quite a detrimental effect on your immune system, along with many other things. And stress, obviously.
Best example, you go on a holiday after a hard 6 months or 1 year, lots of people get sick upon arrival.
Absolutely.
Does it have to do with the stress levels and how the body responds to stopping the stress?
100%. 100%. So, you're going hard. We're all, in this modern society, we're all pushing ourselves. We're all going. We've got, we're communicating. We've got the phones. We've got the emails. We've got computers. We've got targets. There's so much going on. There's so much pressure, even just in daily life, to achieve so many things, and it's just nonstop. So we've got this constant adrenaline pushing us. And when you go on holiday, what happens is we stop. The adrenals go, you can breathe. The adrenaline levels drop, and bang, we get sick. We're vulnerable.
And we most likely are in an environment where that has different viruses and different bacteria, different everything. So not even resilient towards those.
That too. And with traveling, probably one of the biggest ways we pick up stuff is by the surfaces we touch. We go through our daily routines. We touch the same things all the time, but once we travel, just in the airport alone, you're touching all these different surfaces that hundreds of people before you have touched and left behind their viral imprint or bacterial imprint, mostly viral imprint, and then you pick that up. And then somewhere along the line, you'll rub an eye or your nose, or you'll eat something, and bang, same in the plane, when you go to a new environment, you're in a new country or new place or new town or whatever, same deal. You're touching surfaces you haven't touched before. You're picking up stuff, not just being exposed to by air, but you're picking up stuff. So a simple way to reduce the probability: wash your hands.
Yeah, more than often,
And I've never been one for the gels, but for traveling, I think that's one time that having those gels with the high alcohol and chemical content are useful, because it's easy just to bang and whack them on as you're going through your routines, get on your flights or whatever it is that you're doing.
As most of this audience is over 40, we often hear that as we get older, our immune system weakens. Is that even a thing? If it's so, why? And what can we do to prevent it or to slow it down?
So, look, it's not just our immune system that weakens or doesn't function as well as what it used to as we get older. It's every aspect of our body slows down. It's just like a car. You buy a brand new car, it generally runs really well. It might be very efficient, might be quiet, but the longer it goes on, it becomes less efficient, and it becomes a little bit noisier, and things don't work quite as well. The doors even don't close quite as smoothly, doesn't it? Because everything just kind of wears out, and our body's no different. And I think we all have a reserve. We have a cellular reserve to combat the stresses of daily life, whatever they happen to be. And whilst we've got the reserve there, or the buffer, we don't notice it. But when that runs out, as it inevitably will, all of a sudden our cells or our organ systems can't recover the same, and the cracks start to show. And the easiest way to see that is in our skin, because we see it every day, isn't it? And we wake up one morning, we look in the mirror and we go, who's that? Looking back at me. And all of a sudden it changes. And that's all the, the wrinkles we get in our skin is just our skin's inability to repair the crack. And so we get a wrinkle. And that's just that tipping point. We all have that tipping point. Genetically, some people will take a lot longer to get to that tipping point, and they can put their bodies through so much more. We all know those people who could smoke and drink, and they never get sick, and they keep going and going and going. And we got people like me who couldn't do that at all because I'd fall over very, very quickly. And so genetically we have different robustness as well, so that comes into it, but also how hard we push ourselves. And like me, in my 20s, I could do anything. I have the physical body type that can pretty much meet any challenge, and I'd put it through pretty much every challenge, and I'd go hard, and I'd recover really quickly, and I'd bounce back. And so I thought, great, I can do this, and I can burn the candle at each end, and I don't have to have much sleep and rest in between and stuff like that. So I pushed it pretty hard. Now, looking back, I'm in my 50s, I look back and go, yeah, there was a cost. You wouldn't see it at the time, but now I know the cost. And so when we hit this point in time, it's just recognizing and understanding that. And so, it comes back to everything everybody talks about. It comes back to what foods we eat. Food is going to put a stress on my system. So I can eat a food that's going to put less stress on my system. I can eat a food that's going to have more stress on my system. It's sleep. It's rest and recovery. And regeneration. I want my body to be able to regenerate itself. It's going to take time to do that. So the more time I give it to regenerate and heal, the longer I'm going to last.
Right.
And that applies every part of my body. So not just the immune system, but it's everything. So
like
everything
exercise,
we've been talking about.
we can't train hard 5-6 days a week.
100%.
After 40-50, you need to do strength training for 2 or 3 days a week, and the rest is mobility, release, stretches, breathing, walking, recovery.
Right. So exercise and the immune system, while we're talking about that, right? So exercise has a profound effect on the immune system. Exercise beats most antidepressants for mild to moderate depression in terms of effectiveness by far.
Right. Yes.
And we're not talking extreme exercise here. We're just talking about moving the body every day, a little bit every day, even a few times a week. So body movement is really, really important, and it has so many positive effects on every aspect of your being, and it's really important. But you push it too hard, right? You push it too hard. There's that tipping point, and you start putting more stress on the body. It doesn't recover, and you're going to wear the body out faster. You're going to cause more damage, not just to the immune system, but to wherever you're vulnerable, wherever you're genetically vulnerable, where it happens to be your brain, where it happens to be the blood vessels, the arteries for heart attacks or strokes or things, whether it's the metabolic system, so your sugars and fats. So some people exercise really hard to lose weight, and they put on weight.
And they achieve the opposite.
They achieve the opposite.
Yeah.
That's just body telling I'm under stress. I can't keep up with what you're doing, so I'm going to go into survival mode and put on fat. Going to defend myself and put on fat. Blood sugars. Yep. It can put stress on the blood sugar system, every aspect of your system, and then your muscles don't recover the same, so you actually get weaker. And so there's that tipping point, and it's just being aware. And as we get older, it's not extreme exercise, and that's the profound thing that the studies and science is really starting to show now. It's just movement. It's just move your body in some way, shape, or form that's safe, and that's going to help to build it up. And be gentle. It'll work. It's profound. It has more profound effect than anything else. Is movement.
So that's our foundation here at Club 45, and the philosophy is that less is more, do it right, do it enough, and rather than do it in high quantity, focus on the quality.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It seems to be working really well for our members.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer.
Because you exercise well, you sleep better.
Yeah.
You sleep better, everything works better as well because you've had time to regenerate and recover and heal. And so, you know, and it flows on that fact. It helps with the microbiome, helps with your immune system. You stay fitter, you stay stronger, you don't get sick as much, all that stuff. So you can turn that cycle around, and the better you feel, the better food choices you're going to make.
Right.
Right? Who, when they feel absolutely grotty, they've got no energy, they're full of brain fog, they're feeling like absolute rubbish, goes into the kitchen to get a carrot, or you go to the kitchen to get some processed fat, carbohydrate, or sugar. Everybody does, right? Because that's what you're looking for. So when you feel good, you make different choices.
Different choices. Don't go to the grocery store hungry.
No.
Big lesson.
You can go to the veggie store, that grocery store, hungry. That's fine. Don't go to the supermarket. Yeah, I know you meant, yeah. But don't go to the supermarket or the corner store hungry. Yeah, you'll never make good choices.
So in conclusion, we couldn't really say that, okay, this particular beetroot or acai or this antioxidant or that antioxidant, it's the magic pill, so to speak, to boost our immune system, to just become this super resilient, never catching anything, super healthy person. It's a combination of many things. Is that correct?
100%. 100%. And you know, there are certain foods or supplements that do help some people, but generally they're short term. You can't take them long term because your body will just adapt. So if you just take this one thing, but you're doing everything else you've always done, you'll get an initial response, but then your body will adapt, and the thing that it's going to influence it the most is everything you've always done there. So you'll just go back to where you were. And you've got a little bit and then back to where you were again. What's going to make the most difference is what you do every day.
Right.
What you do every day. That makes the most difference. And you know, and balance in all things. I always say to people, you know, it's not a religious statement, it's a perspective, right? God created the world in 6 days and had a rest on the 7th. So it's what you do on the 6 days that has the most influence, which means on the 7th day, or every so often, you know, you can do whatever you want to do. You can have the things that you feel like you're really missing out on, or doing whatever. Great, go for it and enjoy it, right? But it's what you do 6 days that matters, and it comes down to, on those 6 days, what you're eating regularly, comes down to movement, as we've talked about, comes down to sleep. It comes down to interpersonal relationships. So, you know, and one thing we haven't talked about with stress, but laughter and fun.
Right.
You know, that has a profound effect on your immune system as well, and other things. So it's those environmental things that you're doing every day, that you're exposing yourself to every day, that matter. And a chemical-free environment as well. So, you know, the amount of chemicals we're exposed to in daily life, in daily living now, is huge. It's huge. It's in probably the hundreds of thousands a day that our bodies are exposed to.
Right.
So we can't get rid of it all, but we can be aware of that and look at, you know, minimizing the impact of that as well, because that obviously will have a detrimental effect over time. So yeah, just those simple things. Same things everybody always says. But I think the key thing is, like, listen to your body. Find out what works for you, and listen to what your body's telling you. Don't listen to what everybody else is telling you. And I think that's a real key thing, because if you're pushing something and it's not working and it's not feeling good, then stop doing it and change and do something else.
I couldn't have asked for more appropriate finishing words to this conversation. Dr. Dean, thank you very much. Great information, very useful, very easy to apply. If someone listened and wanna change small things in their lives for the better. And if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe so you will never miss out on any other content we will put up here. So thank you very much. I will see you next time. Thank you, Dean.
Pleasure.